Oh there. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to your Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob. This guy right here, your agree out here to tell you stories that gives insight to where you are. So the story about Moses, right? I like to talk about the superheroes of the Bible. Adam and Noah and David and Moses and Abraham and Isaac and all those guys. Right? Not too many girls in there, but there are a few. And that dynamic of God continually, um, you know, cutting humanity slack. Well, why is that? Because, when the burning bush met up with Moses up on the hill there with the sheep, Moses said, I'm fine where I'm at. Thanks a lot, but catch you later. And God said, oh, no, you got to go back to Egypt and get the Israelis out of Egypt. Not because they were, oh, I heard them crying and, oh, blah, 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 blah. The majority of the Hebrew tribes in Egypt, they had skills, so they were used, as lawyers and, accountants and what have you. I mean, they were not, cleaning the toilets. Yes, I'm sure some were because everyone has to. I mean, someone has to clean the toilet, right? So that's the interesting thing, right? And so what God was concerned about is that his chosen folk were quickly becoming pagan, Egyptian kind of dudes and dudettes, and what's going on there. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. That's me, that's this guy right here. And hey, how about, subscribing? How about hitting that like button, How about telling folks, hey, you got to catch this guy, Sensie Owl Bob, man, he's like really interesting, right? Especially when you guys talk, when the cadre shows up and we have conversation, that's when the show gets better. But anyway, so why am I talking about Moses and God and the burning bush and all of that, right? Well, because, Moses was a, not broken, but a soiled, he, you know, didn't always do the great thing. But, you look at David, the greatest king of Israel. Well, he wasn't the best boy either. Pretty much everyone screws up, right? And what's needed is that we understand that we're going to make mistakes. But love's co-creation, the creator, right? The great creator of all things, right? Is there to have a covenant with us. What? Covenant with me? Yes, covenant with you. And all you have to do is be there for God, right? All you got to do is during it, read you read the book. That's cool. It's a great tool. But it's not the be end and end all. It's God's word. Well, pretty much everything is. You're supposed to be listening. That's a real interesting thing. Let's see. I am from India. That's a nice place. Some great culture in India, great food, great people. But India has always been a place where only the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, right? And it's been industrialized and culturalized to the point where everyone expects, well, I just stay in my place. I don't, unless they come someplace like America. But now they can't, right? And but it's an interesting story, right? The dynamic of humanity. So it's Sunday. I'm at the church and went to Bible studies, which is what I like best. It's a more intimate rather than the show, right? I don't really stay for the show, right? And So, and people, they've asked me, so why did you say to the service? I said, yeah, I'd be a hypocrite. What? I said, well, I love studying the Bible with you guys. I love hanging out with you guys. I love helping you guys. I love being part of the community, right? But the service is just that. It's a ceremony. It represents, right? It's not, and I can't represent within that construct that you put forth, right? I can love you guys, and I can help you guys, and I can be there for you guys, and I can be in fellowship at Bible studies, because that's what that is. And when more than two come in my name, there I am. So that's my sensibility, right? But the ceremony is, their ceremony, right? And I've been at it. I've been through it, Everyone comes in, everyone sits down, whatchamacallit, so, what do you call it? So, anyone have what do they call it? When you make announcements, right? The announcements are made, and then the chorus stands up, and a woman can barely play the piano, everyone sings off key, and that's okay, It's a lot nicer when you're in a church that the people who are in the choir are really inspired by what they're doing, right? And because energy from the voice box really is important. But when you're like just there because you kind of have to, and you're like looking around, and you're eyeing the chick next to you like, ooh, look at those, it's, so that's why I don't go to church, right? And then the guy gets up. He doesn't even talk about the thing that we studied in Bible study. He makes some kind of whatever. And he's basically not a minister. He was just a businessman, and they wanted somebody like him to be there. Now, he's brought a bunch of people in. He's brought a lot of money in. He's like making the church bigger and better and blah, blah, blah. And that's great. That's really great. And he's a great guy. I like him, right? And but he's so insecure about himself, he basically transmits that sense of insecurity. And I've talked to him, and he goes, who are you to talk to me? I said, ooh, okay. I was born in a Roman Catholic family, of Italian father, Irish mother, Irish German mother. So I have a lot of that Catholic in me. And my godfather, my literal godfather, was Cardinal Cushing, right? A guy who's, 3 hats from the Pope, right? And he saw in me from like infancy that, well, this kid, he's, if I nurture him, if I'm a good example, if I'm, give him good guidance, he's going to become a priest. And pretty much in the 50s, one of the sons in a Catholic family, had to become a priest. So I was the youngest. I had to name both my grandfathers. So that was it, right? And, early on, I realized that your birth certificate is your slave documentation. Who owns you, baby? Not who loves you, but who owns you, right? And then after 1972, when we had the great smokeout with Nixon and Mr. Rothschild, and he just took all the gold that backed our economy and basically wrote an IOU that he would take care of the debts, which he's doing. But the contract states that we are his property, and your birth certificate shows the ownership. There's a guy named, what's his name? He's a really good guy, really smart. He remembers everything, kind of. Maxwell something or other. Big guy, right? Really nice guy. I met him many times back in the late 70s and 80s when the new world order, the new age, the 1,000 points of light, all that stuff came about. But because it's always been there. Every president has been basically a Mason. When Donnie Trump is sitting in the Oval and he's got people talking and he's on camera, he's got his sitting in the chair, his legs wide apart, And right in the middle, he has his little hands in a triangle with his penis right inside of it. You can see how small it is. And that is a Masonic symbol. There's so many of them, right? They're all over the place. Anyway. And the another person who's quite enthralling is Noam Chomsky. Read his book, Manufacturing Consent. He really takes it apart. And there's a really great radio program called Alternative Radio that's been on for 40 years, David Batanya. And you can go online and see every show they have, right? And the one, Norm Chomsky has been on that show many, many times. And the one that is truly interesting is the one that he goes on about, manufacturing consent. And there's a term he uses. Oh, yes. The show is probably called The Right Turn. And so you have to realize right and left, it's just two wings of the same corporate plutocratic bird, right? And the left and the right, that's why they're called neoconservative and neoliberal. What does that mean? So the liberals, right? So we have a constitution, right? And this is, we the people, to assure a stable, good country that delivers, life, liberty, and instead of pursuit of happiness, they said economic freedom. And when they said, oh, you know what? This thing we're here, this Constitution is really written for us, not for the rest. The rest of everyone who's in America, they are basically slaves. It's like Egypt, right? It's like a reflection of, what Moses went through with the Hebrew tribes, right? Exactly it. And so all the conflict that our government manufactures is to keep the people at each other's throats, not at, any specific ideological purity, blah, 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 right? Because it changes all the time. And it doesn't matter because who is in charge are the rich folk. And, you don't really get that. I mean, if you go and listen to George Carlin, I mean, that's who I studied under the tree with. He came from my same neighborhood my grandma was in, right? So, anyway, and that neighborhood was the essence of what America was and that, or is, or trying to, the best thing about America is not like make America great again. It never was. At moments we had pretty good interest. We did some interesting things. We had a moment or two where, oh, look, that's interesting. But in reality, we are being controlled. Did you ever see the movie They Live? Basically, I call it the hidden hand. It's the deep state, the swamp. Well, that's the bureaucracy, right? And Donnie is doing a great job at taking it apart, right? And he's going after all his enemies. He said everything he's doing. He said every other president's ever ran for president and won. They promised all kinds of stuff and never did anything because they went by the mechanism that their overlords, the hidden hand, described to them, which they don't, we don't vote on that, right? And when you ever hear the thing of, democracy's challenged, right? Or the challenge of democracy. And you know what that is? That's the rich people going, hey, listen, we got to really hit these population people who think they have a right for freedom and right for liberty. No, they don't know they're owned, right? And so we'll just have to, get them going on about gays getting married and abortion and trans people. I mean, what difference does that make? It's not even in the Bible. If you're like, I'm a Christian and this is a terrible sin. No, sorry. The only sin there is when we turn our back on God's love, when we ignore it. And every time we think we know better, Every time I live in the real world. The bottom line. That's I'm a professional. I make money. That's what I do. Right? No, not really. You are basically losing your soul when you talk that way. When I died in 2014, came out the other way, and they were going to chop me up like bologna, and I said, no, 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 no. Well, you're going to die immediately if you don't let us take 20 feet out of your colon and top off your legs above your knee and do open heart surgery. No, I said, good, I'll die. I've already died a few times. I know what it's like. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it, right? I used to be an EMT. I saw a lot of people die, right? I used to be a photojournalist. I took a lot of pictures of dead people. So the real essence is that love and co-creation with the great creator is the storyline, right? We're here to, in every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger, not to, make wealth. I made a lot of money here, there, and once in a while, right? And there was never any difference. Like right now, I live on $400 a month. And I live like a millionaire. I spent the last 8 weeks sitting on my front lawn watching the grass grow, right? It was the Indian summer. I'm rooting for another Indian summer. But we had a really beautiful one in September and the early part of October, right? Where it was sunny every day, like for 30 days, sunny every day, and rain a little bit at night, but sunny every day, and it's a real challenge to not listen to God when all you're doing is sitting there seeing His beauty in front of you, and you don't have the radio on. You're not, I have no TV, no radio, no phone, no internet, no nothing out there. Right? I did that on purpose. I went from having a nice chunk of change. I had like 18 different pieces of property that were all rented and bringing in a nice little revenue stream. I really had to work. I had this consulting business that I had a skill set that no one really has, right? I mean, people, say, "Oh, I can do blah blah." There's a TV show on with a guy who's Tony in NCI, and he plays a lawyer, and his name is Bear, and he's kind of like me, a shrinky guy. He's very observant, and he gets paid by lawyers to look at their opposition. The lawyers, the judge, and picking the jury. All that's what I did, right? I would just sit there and take notes, right? And then when we'd go have lunch, I'd give the lawyers a heads up of, hey, I see this, and this juror leaning into trying to listen to X, Y, and Z, and if you, kind of explain it to them this way, and that's another thing. We all learn in a different way. We all understand. So if you are a lawyer and you had to be in front of a jury, you can't just give them one flavor of the story. You have to know what all those 12 people, how they feel, how they think, what their life is, where they come from. And that's what I am. I'm a psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist. That means psycho. What is a psychology? It is the understanding of the individual's window, what they're looking at the universe, how they see the universe. That's psychology, right? And then they put in all these oh, he must be this, he must be that, all these little boxes that people aren't in a box. But they do have their own worldview. Everyone has a different worldview. Now, a lot of them can be, share a silo, but they all individually see it in a different way. So psychosocial. Social is what are they doing now? What job do they have? Where do they live? What's their hobby? That kind of stuff, right? That's the social, right? They're social, right? What their community is. That, right? Psychosocial, cultural, that's their history. Where did grandma come from, right? How do they celebrate, and do they celebrate what holidays, right? And, what do they eat? That's all cultural, right? Psycho, social, cultural, forensic. And what is that? That's the science of deconstructing things and looking all of separate parts. You ever see the TV show Bones? Go watch that. You'll understand what that's about. So, psychosocial, cultural, forensic anthropology. Anthropology is supposed to be the big picture, right? The global kind of picture, right? And you're supposed to look at things without prejudicial glasses, without your bias, without your, being a xenophobe. But we all are. So the only thing you can do is ask God for help. And God will help you see how you see things. And God will help you see how other people see things. And the most important thing about understanding anything that someone else is trying to understand, you watch them and you listen to them. And people have different ways of being. Like, I worked on a program, a number of programs. I did. I had these skill sets of observational skills and understanding it, and then putting it into a protocol that fit the outcome that the guy or people, or the entity that hired me. They want to know this, and this about this, and this, right? So that was like, and I was an itinerant scholar. That was it. So I would do a lot of research in universities, that they would be having a grant and they get money from the government or this organization, and they would house it in a university. And that's why Donnie's going after universities. He's taking that apart. And so he wants to define the singular point of view that everyone, go read the book 1984 by George Orwell. Around page 40, there's this section where our hero, Winston, who works at the Minister of Truth, meaning he's lying all the time, and that's what, is about. It's about lying, about telling the narrative the way the state needs it told. And you have to do it in such a way that they can turn on a dime. I mean, we've been at war with the Larrys forever, and now, now the they aren't, they're great. They're our allies now, and we're now fighting the Jimmies. And the Jimmies used to be our allies, but we don't say that. We've always been fighting the Jimmies. That's newspeak, well, you just lie straight up. And so when Donnie goes, this is fake news, well, it is. It always has been. I mean, since Adam and Eve, it's been fake news. Come on, wake up. And we are heading into some interesting times. So we have Ukraine. Ukraine is about to, it's eating Russia's lunch. And that wasn't supposed to happen, right? And, Russia was supposed to go in there and that this is just going to be a weekend trip and then we're going to own Ukraine. Well, here it is, almost 4 years later, and 1 million Russians dead and disfigured beyond thing. Virtually the whole military force, their tanks, their howitzers, their artillery, their aircraft, dead. It's gone. They can't, And I mean, if it wasn't for North Korea and Iran giving them stuff, Russia wouldn't be able to do anything. Now, Ukraine is, taken out their pipelines, their refineries, and their everything. And Russia does not have, like we have in our distribution, we have all of these fuel farms, these tank farms. So, at any one time, a third of all, petrochemicals that are being produced are being stored somewhere. Meaning it's not being used in the factory or in your car or in the airplane. It's ready to be taken because we're mostly online, meaning all the stuff we're using now basically is coming. We have these pipelines all over America. And so different markets get fed in different ways. That's why different areas, like California, it's like $6 a gallon. Where I'm at, it's $2.10, right? So there isn't any singular thing, right? So we're heading and Donnie went in, and Mr. Vogt, who wrote, Project 2025 and A and B and 2030, he is now, head of office management budget. And he's kind of been at this. His whole life has been like religiously focused on getting rid of the bureaucracy, which is not a bad thing. But see, the way the bureaucracy was set up was that, and good old President Eisenhower, like 20 minutes he had left being president. Everyone's waiting for Jack to be sworn in, right? So all the networks are already like gotten rid of whatever program there is, and there's talking heads going on. And Ike knew he could just walk into the studio and say, I'm declaring a thing. I, as president, want to address the American public. And, the networks were like, oh, that's great. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to look stupid just talking about nothing. We'll let this guy, he just wants to say goodbye. That's great. Everyone loves Ike. Oh, this will work out great. So he gets on and he gives a speech about the military-industrial complex. Now, if you take that speech, it was all of about 20 minutes long. If you take that speech and you take it apart, you see that basically he's talking about what I'm saying, that we have this mechanism that no matter who becomes president, it's going to eat the country alive. It's like, eating the people, right? And that's what's happening right now. So the bureaucracy from, basically 1890s on after the Civil War, and there was this really amazing period of Reconstruction where things were doing pretty good. Lots of interesting things were coming online and giving the average person a little freedom, a little liquidity, a little feeling that, hey, yeah, America's great. And it only lasted about 15, 16 years. And then Woodrow Wilson came in, and he, why everything he did from getting in, Jim Crow, it was there, but he institutionalized it in the government. He put together, the bureaucracy was already there. D.C. became Chocolate City, and all the smart black folk, he came up from the South, the great, when they left the South and went up to Chicago and Motown and all of that, a lot came to D.C., and because they were well educated, they learned how to be institutionalized, and that they learned how to run the master's plantation. And those are people who are running the bureaucracy, and they understand it. They're in the plantation. So this guy Vogt, he's taking it apart. So he spent a good 40 years being in it, working for all kinds of senators and et cetera, et cetera. And he was 100% Donnie from 16 on, even though he didn't like Donnie. He didn't like how Donnie did stuff, but he realized if he hitched his wagon to Donnie, he'd be able to get in there and take, the bureaucracy apart. And that's a good thing because it is a slave mechanism, right? And here he comes, the man, the myth, my buddy. Are you okay, big one?
No.
Are we going somewhere?
No.
Are you just getting in here to... Do you want me to get on the road for you?
No. Go ahead, I'll just...
Okay. Anyway, kids, the crowd is about to come out of the church. What does the Bible say about watching inappropriate adult movies? Is it a sin? I'm going to give my point of view, and then Big Daddy it may or may not, depending. He may not. He's had a hard day. But basically, the only sin there is when you turn your back on God. And watching porno is like turning your back on God. Now, if you do it once because you're horny and you just got to get that release, well, that's wired in us. We're like dogs. Is it a sin that the dog is like humping your leg? No. But if your life revolves around that, that's what's the most important thing. That's the sin. If you can't, all you have to do to get out of any habit, you're addicted to drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, anything, All I have to do is say, God, please, I don't know how to get out of this. I'm really confused. I don't know what to do. Please help me. I am giving you the wheel of the car, and you drive my life. And that's when the guy on the cross that was next to Jesus, right? And basically, Jesus has done everything he had to do in the mortal life to say, do what the book said, and he did. And so the next thing he has to do, the one thing he has to do is like die in the way the book says and he did. He did like 500 things, boom, 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 like within a week, right? Just what the book said. And that in itself was like a miracle. So he dies, but before he dies, all of the stuff he went through, no big deal, but he's looking at the bigger picture, at everyone's suffering. And he goes, Father, forgive them, or they know not what they do. And that's it. We are chuckleheads. We have no idea, right? And we're so susceptible, like porn. We're so susceptible to anything. We can be easily chumped, right? So all you have to do is say, God, help me out here. I have no idea what I'm doing. Please. And God will say, okay, no problem. And every day and every way, you hang on to me and we will do this together. Because we are a covenant, right? And that's what it is. We're a covenant of unconditional love. And the tool, the crowbar for that in our life is Jesus's forgiveness. Because pretty much whatever conceptually was the original sin was like wiped away by Jesus' sacrifice, right? And in all the religions, the Jewish one, all the pagan ones, it's all about, oh, I gotta burn the calf, and all that was like roasting the lamb chops for the priests. That's how they got a free lunch. So anyway, that's about it, kids. Message is held. Okay, I won't even read that one. But don't worry about the things. Well, all you got to do is say, God, yeah, I made a mistake here. I'm sorry. Help me out. I keep doing the same stupid thing over and over again. Only way I'm getting out of this is through you. Okay? I'm offering my whole existence up to you. It's a covenant, right? We're going to do this together, right? And that's when Jesus will really come into your life, right? And praise God, praise Jesus. I love you. And Big Daddy, you love them too, right?
Very much.
Yep, okay. So, gotta go, because I gotta help my buddy here. And the crowd's gonna show up soon. So, okay. Let's hit the little X up there.